All right, welcome into the MMA Hangout. UFC 296 on Saturday, and there's only one person that I can bring in, el primo mío, el primo tuyo, Danny Segura from MMA Fighting. What's up, brother?
Good, man. Happy to be here. Thanks for the invite and ready to talk some fights.
UFC 296 has a banger set up for us. Last card of the year for the UFC in a year of the UFC being at its peak, right? 30th year anniversary, and it's been from January to December, all fights, all cards have been great, dude.
Maybe not the most mediatic in terms of buzz and all that, but if you just look at the fights, like every single matchup has a compelling storyline, great scraps, 2 title fights. I mean, what a way to close out the year. I know we lost the Ian Gary Vicente Luque fight, which that fight to me was very interesting, but still the prelims are stacked. I mean, it's hard to complain about this card. Very, very good card to close out a fantastic year for the UFC.
Let's start in the first title fight in the main event. Leon Edwards, who has been on an absolute heater, hasn't lost a fight since 2015, which is insane. Going against Colby Covington, who the last time we saw in the octagon was against George Masvidal 2 years ago. That was 2021, if I remember correctly. It's been a 2-year absence for Colby Covington. Obviously, he's had the lawsuit issue that he was suing George for, you know, the 2-piece in a soda he gave him outside of Poppy Steak. He hasn't fought since then. Your view on a Colby Covington who hasn't fought in 2 years versus Leon, who is just on fire right now?
I mean, I feel like the initial reaction, because this fight was basically announced a long ass time ago, but they just haven't been able to book it because apparently Leon didn't want to fight Colby, not because he's scared, just because he didn't think he was the most deserving contender. And that is 100% an argument you can make. I mean, I can name like 4 or 5 other guys that deserve to be fighting at UFC 296 instead of Colby, but Colby sells. And for whatever reason, Dana White thought he merited a title shot, and here he is. So we've talked about that extensively, I think. So I don't want to, beat the dead horse, but I think this is the last title fight that Colby Covington is going to be involved in. If he wins, obviously we're going to see some more in the future. But if he loses, this is it. This is it. 35 years of age, almost a 2-year layoff. This is it. If he doesn't win this one, I don't see him going back to the line and beating 2, 3 contenders, 4 contenders at 35 years of age and make another run for the belt. So this is the last we might be seeing of Colby Covington as a title contender.
It's crazy. It's do or die for him right now. Like
100%.
everything for him is on the line against a guy who is dominating the division, who is fighting at just his absolute apex, who just seems to be not fazed by all of the Colby Covington bullshit that we usually see, the character that he tries to, pretend he is, which I think is part of the problem with Colby, right? It's like, buddy, we know who you are. People that know you know that you're not this guy, but you put this on, this heel version of yourself to try and be,
it works paper. Though.
It works for sure, especially when you bring politics into it, and he's the Trump guy and the MAGA guy, and he's like it works for him, and I feel like that's kind of why. Dana, outside of like, hey, just end the lawsuit. Let's kind of get everything out of the way. We'll give you a title fight. Hopefully you win. If not, good riddance. Like it's kind of over. But to me, just Leon is in the matrix right now where he is fighting so well. I would have liked to see him versus Bilal Muhammad. I think that would have been an absolute banger, especially because their fight got ended with the eye poke last time.
Yeah.
That would have been huge. And of course he's the backup fighter and everything's gonna probably go smoothly.
We might end up seeing that fight. Who knows, right?
That would be huge.
Anything can happen.
And that would be amazing though. But your thoughts, is it just Leon Edwards is just too good right now?
Honestly, like if these two were to, I think Leon is in his prime right now. I'm not sure if Colby is, probably not by like all indications. But if both guys were in their prime, I would have a lot of issues trying to do a prediction on this one. But look, Colby is a great fighter. I still think he is a great fighter, but I do expect some sort of downfall from the prime. I still think he's probably like a top 5, certainly a top 10, but prime at 35 years of age, haven't fought in almost 2 years. I don't think that he is. So I'm going to go with Leon. I just think he's in a way better moment. As you mentioned, he hasn't lost in forever since 2015. His last few performances have been stellar. Everything just points that Leon should win this fight fairly comfortable. Colby's a hard worker. I think he's going to have a great showing. By no means is he going to embarrass himself. But much better moment, Leon, right now.
And it's obviously Colby has insane cardio, good wrestler. Like, he has all that stuff with him, but those 2 years of layoff, and on top of that, we saw in the MMA transitive property math of, we've seen Leon, obviously the first fight or the second fight, whichever way you want to do that math, against Kamaru Usman, when he had the head kick, the original one, he was getting walked the entire fight until that last fifth round. Yeah. So we saw that happen, but then the second fight between him and Kamaru for the belt, he just walked him down. So if you look at that transitive property math, Kamaru has walked down Colby Covington, and then Leon walked down Kamaru. So it looks set up for Leon Edwards to retain his belt and still.
Yeah, I think that's a safe bet. Again, Colby in a different situation, if he were to be active, maybe a little bit younger, I'd actually like his chances against Leon Edwards. But at this point in time, I think his better days are over. So Leon should win this. But I leave a small room, maybe like a 25% chance that there could be an upset here.
Going to the flyweight title, the co-main event of the night for UFC 296, Alexandre Pantoja versus Brandon Royval. Another fight that we've seen before.
Yes, sir.
What do you think about this one? Because this division is interesting. There's been a lot of guys at the top for a long time. Mighty Mouse, Figueiredo, Moreno, and now it's Pantoja's time. Is he somebody that can continue to have the belt for a while, have a couple defenses under his belt?
I think so. This is a great fighter. And just to throw a stat out there, this is the first title fight at flyweight that doesn't involve Deiveson Figueiredo or Brandon Moreno since November 2020. So it's been 3 years.
Almost 4 years.
Since we've gotten a fight without any of these two guys. So it's a breath of fresh air for the division. I love Brandon Moreno. People know that, that's my guy. I've been covering him since day one. I also love Deiveson Figueiredo as well. He's a great fighter. But the division needed this. The division needed a bit of a change in air, and we're finally getting it. This is a fantastic fight. We've seen it before. It was an amazing fight then. I'm sure it's going to be even better now because both fighters have improved a ton. Pantoja, I mean, you just look at the war he had against Brandon Moreno, probably fight of the year. We'll see when the voting and all that gets done in a few weeks, but a fantastic fight. I do think he has the makings to be a dominant champion. And I think Brandon Royval, as good as he is, this should be a comfortable win for Pantoja.
It's insane for those that don't know, Pantoja's been fighting and trying to get his way up to this title and then beat Brandon Moreno, who, again, was a lovable and had a great story on his own, right? Getting up to the title fight and retaining that belt. And now it's Pantoja's turn. He was doing Uber Eats before the title fight, like trying to get to a place where his camp was paid for, everything was paid for, and he could put food on the table for people, and now he's the champion. So it's a really cool story for Pantoja. I like him in this fight. It's just we always have that 20% bump for the title holder, and right now Pantoja was good enough to beat Moreno, and I think he's going to be good enough to handily beat Royval. I think he beat him with it was a rear naked choke last time, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, he submitted him. Yeah.
Submitted him with a rear naked choke. Like, I could see that kind of in the future. I might put a little something on with DraftKings. Submission Pantoja. I think that's the way to go. I think if you really want to get specific, third or fourth round, but I'm pretty comfortable that we're going to see a rear naked choke from Pantoja. I mean, he's just a better fighter. He's just a better grappler. He's got a good chin. I think Royval might be the tallest fighter at flyweight at 5'9", which that's huge for flyweight. It's crazy,
doesn't pack much power. His thing is grappling, and he's fighting probably the best grappler in the division. So if Brandon Moreno couldn't outstrike him or knock him out, I don't think Royval will. And in the grappling department, Pantoja should have a clear edge in this one. So Pantoja submission is a good bet.
I like that. Let's move on to welterweight. Shavkat Rachmanov versus Wonderboy Stephen Thompson. This is an interesting fight too, because Stephen Thompson, Wonderboy, he has a great chin, obviously an electric fighter, great kickboxer, but Shavkat is just an animal. Dude is like a cyborg. He's like the Terminator. He just walks in. He doesn't care if he's getting punched in the face. He's putting his nose into the buzzsaw and just looking for that submission and looking for that knockout. Like, he's 17-0 for people that don't know. 17-0 from Kazakhstan. The guy's amazing.
Yeah. Undefeated, wears dead skins of animals as hats, eats horse meat. This guy's the real deal. He's the real deal. And he's fighting a former title challenger in Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, a clean-cut point fighter. I mean, this is contrasting styles. Just a fantastic fight wherever you look at it for both guys. Rare times you get in matchmaking where a matchup favors both fighters. Usually is somebody's getting the short end of the stick, right? And maybe we'll talk about that in a few minutes. But in this one, I mean, for Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, he's lost to Bilal Muhammad. He's lost to Gilbert Burns. And all of those guys have wrestled him into defeat, right? But if you want to pick the biggest, most legitimate win while still being friendly to your style, which is striker, is Shavkat. He's the baddest dude in the division that will stand and trade with you. So for both fighters, a fantastic fight. And maybe a title eliminator. I think I would like to think that Bilal is next, but the UFC hasn't done him a ton of favors. I think the winner here will definitely get a big spotlight in the division.
Isn't that interesting that it was first the guy who the UFC was kind of downplaying was Leon, right? Gave him didn't give him every opportunity to be the best, and then he finally got his shot against Kamaru Usman, who had 8 title defenses, something crazy, right? He had 7 or 8 title defenses.
Yep, he was pound for pound number 1.
Pound for pound number 1. Lands the head kick. All of a sudden, now everybody loves Leon Edwards. It's Rocky. Let's go. They're putting videos up of the coach. The UFC didn't want this to happen, right? And it almost feels like the same things happened for Bilal Muhammad, who I saw in Jersey beat Gilbert Burns. And I was like, dude, Bilal looks incredible. Like leg kicking the shit out of Gilbert Burns. Like he looked excellent as a fighter. And we're still waiting for that title contending fight. But right now it's just kind of in the works. But if Shavkat beats Wonderboy, I mean, it almost feels like Shavkat is getting the quick, easy pass, sun pass lane straight to the next title fight, right?
We'll see, man. We'll see. I mean, I think the UFC likes Shavkat a lot. I think they would want to push him. That's also a guy that, for the most part, like this is an American sport, right? The UFC is an American company. So everybody always tells fighters, learn English. But there's these rarities like Poatan, like Shavkat, that can pull it off just looking mean, and that's it. You just stand there, look mean, fight your ass off, and we love you. That's Shavkat, man. So I think the UFC would love to have him as champion and throw him up there. But I think the hardcores, which is a big portion that the UFC very much respects, I think they would lose their shit if Bilal Muhammad doesn't get the next title shot, because he's done it all, man. He's done it all. I mean, at this point, he can't do anything else but fight the champion. So for sporting sake, I do hope that Bilal is next.
Shavkat versus Bilal for eliminator.
Oh, man. Again, a fantastic fight. I wouldn't complain about it. But at this point, I do think that Bilal is deserved of a shot. Like giving him another fight, especially a guy that
is a slap in the face.
Meat at this point, it's criminal. I wouldn't do that to him.
Moving on to the last fight of the night, because the welterweight fight between Vicente Luque and Ian Machado Gary has been scrapped due to Ian Gary having pneumonia, which is Danny, I don't know about you, but I don't think pneumonia happens from one day to the next. I think there's been a buildup of pneumonia where you kind of know you have it for like a week or maybe 2. And all of a sudden for this to come out on, we're taping this on Thursday morning, which the news broke. Ariel broke the news, a couple hours ago?
Wednesday night.
Wednesday night. So we're talking about it less than 12 hours ago. The news broke that Ian Machado Gary had pneumonia, and now he's out. So that fight is scrapped. But the fight that I want to talk about that I feel is going to be, we're going to be on separate sides of it, you and I.
Okay.
Tony Ferguson at Kukui versus a fighter that the UFC is trying to make happen in Paddy Pimblett. Your thoughts, Tony Ferguson, do or die right now against Paddy the Batty Pimblett?
Dude, I'm going with Paddy the Batty. No! Tony Ferguson is on a 6-fight losing streak. But I will say this, though. A lot of people think that this is how we say in Spanish, llevándolo al matadero, taking him to the slaughterhouse, to the outhouse, to get killed for, a younger, much hungrier lion. But I don't see it that way. I think this might be the easiest opponent Tony Ferguson has ever faced in his entire career of the UFC. Maybe there's a couple names that you can throw in there. But if you look at his entire resume, Paddy Pimblett is the easiest fight. And that's what he should be fighting at this point of his career. Almost 40 years of age, 39, 6-fight losing streak. I don't want him against a Michael Chandler or Justin Gaethje. No, give him somebody like Paddy Pimblett. So contrary to many people, I do believe this is a competitive fight, a very winnable fight for Tony Ferguson. But if I had to pick somebody, I'm going to go with Paddy the Batty.
Danny, you're missing the point, though. You're missing.
And by the way, my soul died a little bit making that pick. Just letting you know. So please don't make me say that name again.
Thank you. Because what you're missing and what the people need to hear is that Tony Ferguson looked good against Bobby Green, okay? Had that eye poke. He had that eye poke. Things went south, but he looked good against If he dropped Bobby Green, if I remember correctly, right? In that first round?
He might have stumbled him a little bit.
I think he might have dropped him. Stumbled, at least maybe put him to a knee. I'd have to rewatch the film. But the difference is this. Tony Ferguson and Kukui has been working with the one and only David Goggins. And David Goggins is going to be in the corner. Can you imagine if Paddy lands a shot on Tony, they go back to the corner, and you have David Goggins in your face telling you who's going to carry the boats? Who's going to carry the boats?
Oh my God. I just want a camera just on that corner.
On the corner.
Look,
I need the corner
I would love
hot.
to see it. I would love to see it. No disrespect to Paddy, but Tony Ferguson has been one of my favorite fighters for years, even though he sent me to hell in a media day and told me to eat shit, basically. But I love Tony Ferguson. He is a badass. And look, all respect to him. I would love to see him pick up a vintage win, whether it's an elbow or a Darce.
Can
call
you
it
imagine?
Quits, right off into the sunset with David Goggins and become an influencer, fitness, mental fortitude guru in the MMA sphere. I would love for Ferguson to go down that path.
He's plus 240 on DraftKings, right? And I might throw a little something on a Tony Ferguson win because of the fact of there's too many things going right. Goggins in the corner. Who's going to carry the boats? He went through hell week. Goggins. That's what I'm giving Tony Ferguson Goggins in the corner. And if you get stunned, all of a sudden you look in that corner and David Goggins is telling you, let's go, carry the boats. Bro. Dude, I'm locked in.
Bro, if he gets knocked out or loses, he knows he's going to have to run like 2 or 3 laps around the world. So like you better pick up a dub. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly. So again, that's it. 296 stacked. We're not going to get to the prelims, early prelims. A lot of bangers on there. Josh Emmett versus who is it?
Bryce Mitchell.
Bryce Smith, Thug Nasty. Giga Chikadze out. Bryce Mitchell in. That fight's going to be excellent. Do or die for Josh Emmett too, I think, at this point.
No, I think he's done. Even if he wins, he stays in the UFC, obviously, but I don't see him getting that title shot.
And he looked good, man. He looked so good, and then ran into 2 buzzsaws.
Do or die for Cody Garbrandt.
Yeah, Cody Garbrandt also.
Yeah, that's not a bad bet. Man, if I had to put a parlay out there, shouts out to DraftKings, Pantoja and Leon.
Pantoja, Leon. That's a great parlay. I might go Leon Colby over on rounds too.
Yeah, 100%. Depending on what the round is, but yeah, that goes to a decision, I think.
He's Danny Segura from MMA Junkie. Brother, thank you so much, as always, for hanging out with us and previewing yet another UFC card. We'll be back next year with some interesting stuff, you and I. So stay tuned.